Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as the desert sun beat down on him. He had been working at the new Phoenix scrapyard for 6 months now, ever since he left the military. 12 years he had spent fighting in space, visiting strange planets, meeting aliens from all over the galaxy. Now he spent his days cutting up old spaceship parts and sorting through piles of broken metal. The scrapyard was huge, covering 50 acres of empty desert land outside the city. Mountains of old alien technology filled the space. Broken ships, old weapons, strange machines that nobody knew how to use anymore. Everything that came back from space and had no use ended up here. Jake's job was simple. Cut the metal, sort it into piles, and try not to think too much about his past. He liked the quiet. After so many years of explosions and gunfire and people yelling orders, the silence of the desert felt good. Most days he worked alone in his section of the yard. Just him, his tools, and the endless piles of scrap. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Jake was cutting through a piece of hull plating from some old cargo ship when he heard a sound. It was faint, almost lost in the wind, but it made him stop. He turned off his plasma cutter and listened. There it was again. A cry like an animal in pain. It came from somewhere deep in the restricted section of the yard, where they kept the more dangerous stuff. The broken weapons, the ships that still had fuel in them, the tech that might explode if you looked at it wrong. Jake knew he should call security. That was the rule. Anything strange in the restricted zone had to be reported. But something about that sound made his chest tight. It sounded scared. It sounded hurt. It sounded like something that needed help right now, not after security filled out their forms and took their time checking it out. He put down his tools and started walking. The restricted section was like a maze with piles of wreckage stacked 3 stories high. He climbed over twisted metal and squeezed between broken ship parts. The sound got louder as he got closer. It was definitely an animal, and it was definitely in trouble. Behind a fallen cargo container, Jake found it. The creature was about the size of a big dog, but it definitely was not a dog. It had 6 legs, each ending in claws that looked sharp even folded up. Its body was covered in scales that seemed to change color as he watched, shifting from blue to silver and back again. 2 huge eyes stared up at him, so big they took up half its face. One of its back legs was bent the wrong way, clearly broken. A deep cut ran along its side, leaking blue blood that glowed slightly in the shadows. The creature tried to back away from him, dragging its broken leg. It was trapped between the container and a pile of metal. It opened its mouth and showed rows of small, sharp teeth. It made a hissing sound, trying to seem dangerous, but Jake could see it shaking. He had worked with enough alien species during his service to know fear when he saw it. This creature was terrified. Jake held up his hands slowly, palms out. "Easy there," he said, keeping his voice soft and calm. "I am not going to hurt you." The creature watched him with those massive eyes. Its scales flickered through different shades of gray and black. Jake could tell it was thinking, trying to decide if he was a threat or not. This was not just a dumb animal. This was something smart, something that understood fear and pain and probably a whole lot more. He looked at the wound on its side, at the twisted leg, at the way it was shivering even though the desert was hot. Someone had hurt this creature and left it here to die. The thought made Jake angry. He had seen a lot of bad things in the war, but hurting something helpless always made him the angriest. "All right, listen," Jake said quietly. "I want to help you, but you need to trust me just a little bit. Can you do that?" The creature tilted its head, still watching him. Jake slowly reached for his tool belt and pulled out his emergency medical kit. Every veteran carried one, even years after leaving the service. Some habits never went away. He opened the kit and held it where the creature could see it. "Medical supplies," he said. "I'm going to fix you up, make you feel better." Whether the creature understood his words or just his tone, something changed. Its scales stopped flickering so fast. The hissing got quieter. Its body relaxed just a tiny bit. Jake took that as permission. Moving slowly, making sure the creature could see everything he did, he crawled closer. The creature tensed but did not try to run. When Jake was close enough to touch it, he carefully looked at the wound on its side. The cut was deep but clean, like it had been made by a sharp piece of metal. Jake pulled out a tube of biogel from his kit. This stuff worked on most life forms, human or alien. He had used it plenty of times during the war. He started applying it to the wound. The creature yelped, a sharp, high sound that hurt Jake's ears. but it held still. Jake worked as fast as he could, spreading the gel over the wound. The gel started working immediately, sealing the cut and stopping the bleeding. The broken leg would need more help than he could give here in the scrapyard, but he wrapped it carefully with a stabilizing cast from his kit. Through all of this, the creature watched him with those huge eyes. When Jake was finally done, he sat back on his heels. "There," he said. "That should hold you until we can get you real help." The creature made a soft sound like a chirp. It sniffed at his hand carefully. Then, moving slowly on its good legs, it limped forward and pressed its head against Jake's chest. Jake felt something break inside him. For 6 months, he had been going through the motions. Working, sleeping, eating, repeat. Not really feeling much of anything. The war had taken a lot from him, including his ability to care about things. But sitting there in the scrapyard with this injured alien creature pressing against him, he felt something wake up. He reached out and gently touched the creature's head. The scales were warm under his fingers, smooth and slightly rough at the same time. The creature's scales changed color again, this time to a soft green. It made that chirping sound again, and Jake somehow knew it was happy. "Yeah," Jake said quietly. "I am taking you home with me." Getting the creature out of the scrapyard was easier than Jake thought it would be. He waited until lunch break, when most of the workers went to the cafeteria. Then he carefully picked up the creature and carried it to his truck. It was lighter than he expected, maybe 40 pounds, and it curled against his chest like it trusted him completely. Jake's truck was old and beat up, but it ran. He made a nest of old blankets in the passenger seat and set the creature down gently. It looked around the truck with curiosity, those big eyes taking in everything. Then it curled up in the blankets and closed its eyes. The drive home took 20 minutes. Jake kept looking over at the creature, making sure it was okay. It seemed comfortable, its scales a calm blue color now. Every few minutes it would open one eye and look at him, like it was checking to make sure he was still there. Jake lived in a small apartment on the edge of town. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, living room just big enough for a couch and a TV. It was not much, but it was home. He parked the truck and looked at the creature. "All right," he said. "We need to be quiet going in. My neighbor is nice but nosy. If she sees you, there will be questions I cannot answer." The creature chirped softly like it understood. Jake wrapped it in a blanket and carried it quickly to his apartment. He did not see anyone in the hallway, which was lucky. Inside his apartment, he set the creature down on his couch. The creature immediately started exploring. It sniffed the couch, examined the coffee table, looked at the TV with its head tilted. It moved carefully, favoring its injured leg, but clearly curious about everything. Finally, it settled into a corner where it could see both the door and the windows. Smart, Jake thought. It picked the most defensive position in the room. Jake sat down on the floor across from it. "So," he said, "I guess we need to figure some things out. Like what you eat, and what I am going to call you, and what the hell I just got myself into." The creature looked at him with those enormous eyes, and Jake could swear it understood every word. He had no idea what he was doing. He had no idea if what he did was legal. He had no idea how to take care of an alien creature. But when the creature chirped at him and its scales flashed a happy yellow, Jake smiled for the first time in months. Whatever happened next, at least he was not alone anymore. And neither was this strange, beautiful creature that had come into his life in the middle of a scrapyard. Outside, the sun continued to beat down on the desert. Inside, a man and an alien creature sat in a small apartment, the beginning of something neither of them understood yet, but both of them needed. The first problem showed up within an hour. The creature was hungry. Jake could tell by the way it kept looking at him and making soft, questioning sounds. He opened his refrigerator and stared at the food inside, wondering what an alien might eat. He tried offering it leftover pizza. The creature sniffed it politely but turned away. He tried some raw chicken from the freezer. Same thing. The creature sniffed, looked at him like he was crazy, and walked away. Jake was starting to worry when he remembered the can of tuna in his cupboard. He opened the can and set it on a plate. The creature's scales immediately flashed bright yellow. It rushed over as fast as its injured leg would allow, and ate the entire can in about 10 seconds. Then it looked up at Jake with those big eyes, clearly asking for more. Jake laughed. It was a rusty sound, like he had forgotten how. "Okay, so you like fish. That is something I can work with. But we are going to need to go shopping." He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. The creature tried to follow him. Jake stopped and pointed at the couch. You need to stay here. I will be back soon. The creature made a sad sound, its scales turning gray. Jake felt bad, but he could not exactly take an alien creature to the grocery store. I promise I will come back. Just stay here and rest that leg. He left quickly before he could change his mind. At the store he bought every kind of fish they had. Salmon, tuna, cod, even some fancy stuff he could not pronounce. The cashier gave him a strange look but did not ask questions. When Jake got back to his apartment, he found the creature sitting by the door, waiting for him. Its scales turned bright blue when it saw him, and it made happy chirping sounds. Jake felt something warm in his chest, something he had not felt in a long time. It felt good to have someone actually happy to see him. He grilled some salmon, and the creature ate it like it had not eaten in days. Maybe it had not. Jake had no idea how long it had been trapped in that scrapyard, hurt and alone. While the creature ate, Jake's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and his stomach dropped. It was Lisa Chang, his old commander from the military. Lisa did not call unless something was wrong. Martinez, she said when he answered. Her voice was tight and serious. We need to talk. Are you alone? Jake looked at the creature, which was now trying to figure out how to drink water from a bowl. That depends on what you mean by alone. Jake, this is serious. Something was stolen from the New Phoenix scrapyard yesterday. Something very valuable and very much alive. Jake's mouth went dry. What was stolen? A creature. A juvenile Sithari. Do you know what that is? No, Jake said honestly. The Sithari are a protected species. They are empathic, very smart, and extremely rare. This juvenile was being held at the yard temporarily after being rescued from smugglers. It was waiting to be transported to a proper facility. Someone broke it out and took it. Jake looked at the creature, the Sithari. It was now trying to climb onto his bookshelf, its scales flashing with curiosity. And they think I took it? Jake, you were the only worker in that section yesterday. And your background, your military record, it fits someone who might do something like this. The higher-ups think you have it. What about the smugglers? Jake asked quietly. What do they think? Lisa was quiet for a moment. The smugglers do not know it is missing yet. But when they find out, they are going to come looking. The Sithari are worth millions on the black market. Their empathic abilities make them valuable to some very bad people. So what are you saying? I am saying that if someone did take that Sithari, they did the right thing for the wrong reasons. The holding conditions at that scrapyard were terrible. That creature should never have been kept there, and I am saying that if someone has it now, they need to keep it safe until we can figure out the proper way to handle this. She paused. Are you that someone, Jake? Jake watched the Sithari. It had successfully climbed the bookshelf and was now looking at his old paperback books like they were the most interesting things in the world. Its scales were a calm, happy blue. Yeah, he said. I am that someone. Lisa sighed, but it did not sound angry. It sounded almost relieved. Okay, then you need to know what you are dealing with. The Sithari bond with other beings. Once they choose someone, they form an empathic connection. They can feel your emotions, and you will start to feel theirs. It is permanent, Jake. Once it bonds with you, you cannot give it away or take it back. Jake felt a strange warmth in his chest, a feeling that did not quite feel like his own. He looked at the Sithari, and it looked back at him. In that moment, Jake understood. The warmth he was feeling was not just his. It was coming from the creature, too. I think it might be too late for warnings, Jake said. Of course it is, Lisa said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. All right, here is what we are going to do. I am going to make some calls. The military has procedures for situations like this, but you need to keep that Sithari safe and hidden. If the smugglers find out where it is, they will come with everything they have. How long do I have? Maybe a week. Maybe less. I will contact you again soon. And Jake, be careful, she hung up. Jake looked at the Sithari, which chirped at him with concern. He could feel its worry, a small flutter of anxiety that was definitely not his own emotion. Looks like we have a problem, he said to the creature. Some bad people are going to be looking for you. The Sithari's scales flashed yellow, and Jake felt a burst of something that could only be called excitement. Despite everything, he smiled. This creature had no idea how much trouble they were in, and somehow that made it easier to handle. The rest of the day passed quietly. Jake taught the Sithari to hide when someone knocked on the door. The creature seemed to understand the need for secrecy. Whenever Jake felt tense or worried, it would immediately find a hiding spot, usually under the bed, where its scales would shift to match the shadows. His neighbor Carol came by in the evening with cookies. Jake answered the door, trying to look normal while feeling the Sithari's curiosity pressing at the edge of his mind. It was strange being able to feel someone else's emotions, not reading thoughts exactly, but sensing feelings. Right now, the Sithari was curious about who was at the door, but also cautious. "Jake, honey, I made too many cookies again," Carol said, holding out a tin. "Thought you might like some." "Thanks, Carol, that is really kind of you. Are you doing okay? You look tired." "Just a long day at work. I am fine." Carol looked like she wanted to say more, but she just smiled and patted his arm. "Well, you know where I am if you need anything." After she left, Jake found the Sithari sitting on his bed waiting. "Good job hiding," he said, and felt a wave of pleasure that was definitely not his own. The creature was proud of itself. Jake gave it a piece of salmon as a reward, and the Sithari ate it happily. Then it curled up on the bed, clearly expecting Jake to sit down. When he did, the creature pressed against his side and made that deep purring sound again. Jake sat there, one hand on the Sithari's warm scales, and tried to figure out what he had gotten himself into. A week ago, his biggest problem was dealing with boredom and old memories. Now he had an illegal alien creature bonded to him, smugglers probably looking for it, and the military watching his every move. But as he felt the Sithari's contentment through their bond, as he listened to its purring, Jake realized something. For the first time since leaving the military, he actually cared about something. He had a purpose again. He had something to protect. "I am going to keep you safe," he told the creature. "I do not know how yet, but I will figure it out." The Sithari looked up at him with those enormous eyes, and Jake felt a rush of trust and affection that made his throat tight. This creature believed in him completely. It had chosen him, bonded with him, and now its life was in his hands. Jake had been a soldier for 12 years. He had protected his squad, completed his missions, done his duty. He could do this too. He could protect one small alien creature from the people who wanted to hurt it. He just had to figure out how before those people found them. Outside his window, the desert night fell cool and dark. Inside the small apartment, Jake sat with the Sithari pressed against him, both of them feeling the bond between them grow stronger with each passing hour. Neither of them knew what was coming. Neither of them knew how bad things would get before they got better. But for now, in this moment, they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. Jake woke up on Wednesday morning to find the Sithari curled at the foot of his bed. Its scales were a soft, peaceful blue, and it was making that purring sound in its sleep. Through their bond, Jake could feel its contentment like a warm blanket wrapped around his mind. It was strange, this connection. At first, Jake had thought he was imagining it, but over the past day it had become impossible to ignore. When the Sithari was happy, Jake felt light and warm. When it was worried, he felt a flutter of anxiety. When it was hungry, his own stomach seemed to echo the feeling. He got out of bed carefully, trying not to wake the creature. It stirred anyway, opening one large eye to look at him. Then both eyes opened, and its scales flashed bright yellow. Through their bond, Jake felt pure joy. The Sithari was happy to see him. "Morning," Jake said, scratching behind what he thought might be ears. The creature leaned into his touch, purring louder. He made breakfast, cooking salmon for the Sithari and eggs for himself. The creature sat on the kitchen counter, watching everything he did with intense curiosity. Jake had started calling it Blue, both for its color and because it reminded him of the sky. Every time he used the name, the creature's scales would brighten like it approved. "We need to be extra careful today, Blue," Jake said as they ate. "Those bad people might start looking for you soon." Blue tilted its head, listening. Jake was not sure how much the creature actually understood his words, but it definitely understood his tone and his emotions. Right now, it could feel his worry through their bond. After breakfast, Jake called in sick to work. He needed to learn more about Sithari, and he needed to figure out how to keep Blue safe. He could not do that while cutting up scrap metal. He spent the morning searching online for information. Most of what he found was basic stuff. Sithari were from a planet called Scyther Prime. They were empathic by nature, forming pack bonds for survival. They were protected by galactic law because they were rare, and because their empathic abilities made them targets for illegal trade. But one article made Jake stop and read carefully. It was written by a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. It explained that Sithari bonds were not just emotional. They were physical too. Once bonded, a Sithari and its companion became linked at a deep level. They could sense each other across distances. They could feel each other's pain. And if one died, the other would suffer tremendously, sometimes even dying from the grief. Jake looked at Blue, who was now trying to figure out how to use the TV remote. The creature had figured out that the buttons did something and it was pressing them randomly, fascinated by the changing channels. "So we are stuck with each other," Jake said quietly, "for better or worse." Blue looked at him and chirped. Through their bond, Jake felt affection so strong it made his chest ache. The creature did not see this as being stuck. Blue had chosen him, and Jake realized that he had chosen Blue too, the moment he decided to take the injured creature home from the scrapyard. Around noon, Jake heard a knock at his door. He immediately felt Blue's spike of fear through their bond. The creature scrambled off the couch and ran to the bedroom, hiding under the bed just like Jake had taught it. Jake checked the peephole. It was not Carol this time. It was two men in expensive suits, the kind that looked out of place in his rundown apartment building. He opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "Can I help you?" The taller man smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Jake Martinez, we are private investigators working for a recovery company. We are looking for stolen property. An animal, specifically. Have you seen anything unusual?" "Unusual how?" Jake kept his voice calm even though his heart was pounding. "An alien creature. Small 6 legs, blue scales. Very valuable. It was taken from the new Phoenix scrapyard where you work." Jake shrugged. "I see weird stuff at that yard every day. Broken machines, alien parts, things I cannot even identify. But no animals. Everything there is just dead metal." The shorter man stepped closer. "We have reason to believe you know more than you are saying. You are working in the right section at the right time. I work in that section every day. That is my job. But I have not seen any animals." Jake met the man's eyes steadily. "If there was a creature in that section, it is probably dead by now. You know how hot it gets out there in the desert." From the bedroom, Jake felt Blue's fear spike higher. He pushed back a feeling of calm through their bond, trying to reassure the creature. "Stay quiet. Stay hidden. I will handle this." The tall man pulled out a business card and held it through the gap in the door. "If you remember anything, call us. There is a big reward for information." "Sure," Jake said, taking the card without looking at it. "I will keep my eyes open." The men left, but Jake knew this was far from over. He closed the door and locked it, then went to the bedroom. Blue was pressed into the darkest corner under the bed, its scales completely black with fear. "It is okay," Jake said softly, kneeling down. "They are gone. You are safe." Blue crawled out slowly and pressed against Jake's chest, trembling. Through their bond, Jake felt the creature's terror, and it mixed with his own worry to create a knot in his stomach. His phone rang. It was Lisa. "Jake, those men who just visited you? They are not investigators. They work for the smuggling ring. They are dangerous, I figured that out. What do I do now?" "I have been making calls. There is a woman at the Interspecies Protection Agency named Helen Cruz. She handles cases like this and she wants to help. But she is based in New Chicago and she cannot get to you for a few more days. So I just wait and hope they do not come back. Keep your head down. Stay alert. And Jake?" Lisa paused. "Do not let them take Blue. What they will do to that Sithari if they get it, it is not good. They will use its empathic abilities for all kinds of bad things. Torture, interrogation, manipulation. They will hurt it until it breaks." After Lisa hung up, Jake sat on the floor with Blue in his lap. The creature had stopped trembling, but its scales were still dark with lingering fear. "I will not let them take you," Jake promised. "Whatever it takes, I will keep you safe." Blue looked up at him with those huge eyes, and through their bond, Jake felt the creature's absolute trust. Blue believed him. Blue knew somehow that Jake would protect it. That night, Jake barely slept. Every sound made him jump. Every car that passed by made him check the window. Blue seemed to sense his anxiety and stayed close, its warm body pressed against his side, purring softly. The next day, Thursday, Jake decided they needed to prepare. If the smugglers came back, he needed to be ready. He checked his old service pistol, made sure it was loaded and working. He moved furniture to create better defensive positions. He made sure all the windows were locked and the door had extra security. Blue watched all of this with interest. its scales shifting through different colors as it sensed Jake's determination mixed with worry. "We are going to be okay," Jake told the creature. "I was a soldier for 12 years. I know how to handle bad guys," Blue chirped and rubbed against his leg. Through their bond, Jake felt the creature's confidence in him, and it helped push back his own doubts. That evening, Carol came by again with homemade soup. Jake felt bad lying to her, but he could not risk telling her the truth. The less she knew, the safer she would be if the smugglers came back. "You look exhausted, Jake," Carol said, frowning at him with concern. "Are you sure you are okay?" "Just not sleeping well. Old military stuff, you know. Nightmares." That was not exactly a lie. Jake did have nightmares from his time in the war, but lately they had been less frequent. Having Blue around seemed to help somehow. The creature's presence, its calm contentment during the night, pushed back the bad dreams. Carol looked like she wanted to say more, but she just gave him the soup and made him promise to call if he needed anything. After she left, Jake shared some of the soup with Blue. The creature sniffed it carefully, then ate a little bit. It preferred fish, but it seemed willing to try new things. They spent the evening on the couch together, Jake reading more about Sithari while Blue dozed against his side. The more Jake learned, the more he understood how special this creature was. Sithari were not just rare, they were incredible. Their empathic abilities allowed them to sense emotions and intentions. They could tell if someone was lying or planning to hurt them. They formed bonds that lasted a lifetime and beyond, and somehow this particular Sithari had chosen him. A broken-down ex-soldier who worked in a scrapyard and had trouble sleeping at night. Jake did not understand why Blue had picked him, but he was grateful for it. "Thank you," he said quietly to the sleeping creature, "for trusting me, for choosing me." Blue's scale shifted to a warm, happy orange even in its sleep. Through their bond, Jake felt contentment and love so pure it made his eyes sting. He had spent months after leaving the military feeling empty and lost. He had gone through the motions of living without really feeling alive. But now, with Blue curled against him and their bond humming quietly in his chest, Jake felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt like he had a purpose again. He felt like he mattered to someone. He felt for the first time since coming home from the war, like maybe he was going to be okay. Outside, the night was dark and quiet. Inside Jake's small apartment, a man and an alien creature sat together, their bond growing stronger with each passing moment. The danger was not over. The SM Saturday started quiet, but Jake could feel the tension in the air. He had called in sick to work again, claiming he had the flu. His boss had not sounded convinced, but Jake did not care. He was not leaving Blue alone, not with smugglers looking for the creature. Blue seemed to sense his worry. The Scythery scales kept flickering between colors, never settling on one for long. Through their bond, Jake felt the creature's anxiety mixing with his own, creating a feedback loop of nervousness. "We need to stay calm," Jake said, as much to himself as to Blue. "Getting scared does not help either of us." He spent the morning checking his defenses again. The pistol was loaded and within easy reach. The door had 2 locks plus the chain. The windows were secure. He had moved the couch to create a better position to defend from. It was not much, but it was something. Around noon, Carol knocked on the door. Jake's heart jumped, but he forced himself to breathe normally. Blue immediately ran to the bedroom without being told, understanding that someone was there. Jake opened the door just a crack, keeping the chain on. "Hey, Carol." "Jake, honey, you look terrible," Carol said, her face creased with worry. "Can I bring you some soup? Or medicine?" "I'm okay, really. Just need to rest. Are you sure? You have been acting so strange lately. If something is wrong, you can talk to me." "You know that, right?" Jake felt a sharp pang of guilt. Carol had been nothing but kind to him. She checked on him, brought him food, treated him like family. And here he was, lying to her face. But he could not tell her the truth. If the smugglers found out she knew anything, they might hurt her. "I promise I am fine," he said gently. "Just fighting off a bug. I will be better in a few days." Carol did not look convinced, but she nodded. "Well, you call me if you need anything." "Day or night, you hear me? I will." "Thank you, Carol." After she left, Blue came out of the bedroom slowly. The creature's scales were a worried gray, and Jake could feel its concern through their bond. Not just concern for itself, but concern for him. "I am okay," Jake said, kneeling down to stroke Blue's scales. We are going to be okay." They ate lunch together, Blue having grilled salmon while Jake picked at a sandwich he could barely taste. His stomach was too tight with worry to feel hungry. Every sound from outside made him tense. Every car that drove by made him check the window. Blue stayed close to him all afternoon as if the creature knew something bad was coming. Its scales had settled into a dark blue. The color Jake had learned meant Blue was trying to be brave but was actually scared. Evening came. Jake made dinner more out of habit than hunger. Blue ate its fish but without the usual enthusiasm. Through their bond, Jake felt the creature's unease growing stronger. Then just after sunset, Jake heard it. A soft scraping sound at the door. Someone was trying to pick the lock. Jake's military training kicked in instantly. He grabbed Blue and ran to the bedroom, his heart pounding. He pushed the Sithari into the closet and knelt down to look into those big, frightened eyes. "Stay here," he said firmly, both out loud and through their bond. "Stay hidden. Stay quiet. No matter what happens, do not come out." Blue's scales went completely black with fear, but the creature nodded. Jake could feel its terror mixing with his own. But he pushed back determination and confidence he did not quite feel. Blue needed to believe he could handle this. Jake grabbed his pistol and moved back to the living room just as the door burst open. 3 men came in fast, all carrying guns. Jake recognized the 2 investigators from before. The third man was bigger, meaner looking, and carried a weapon that definitely was not legal. It looked like military-grade alien tech, the kind that could punch holes through walls. "Martinez," the tall investigator said. His fake smile was gone now, replaced by cold anger. "Let us make this easy. Give us the Sithari, and we will leave you in one piece." "I do not know what you are talking about," Jake said, raising his pistol. His hands were steady, all those years of combat training taking over. "Wrong answer," the big man said, and raised his weapon. Jake dove behind the couch as energy bolts ripped through his apartment. The smell of burning fabric filled the air. He came up shooting, his pistol cracking sharply in the small space. One of the smugglers went down, clutching his shoulder and screaming. The others scattered, taking cover. Through his bond with Blue, Jake felt the creature's terror like a spike through his chest. He pushed back reassurance, trying to keep Blue calm and hidden. But his own adrenaline was making it hard to control his emotions. "You were military, right?" the tall investigator shouted from behind Jake's overturned coffee table. "So you know you cannot win this. We have more men coming. Just give us the creature and we will let you live." Jake did not waste breath answering. He fired twice more, forcing the smugglers to keep their heads down. Then he made a break for the bedroom. He needed to get to Blue, needed to protect his bonded companion. He almost made it. The big man caught him in the hallway, slamming him against the wall so hard Jake's vision went black for a second. His pistol flew from his hand, skittering across the floor. Jake fought back, using every dirty trick he had learned in 12 years of combat. He went for the eyes, the throat, the knees. But the smuggler was strong and well-trained. They crashed through the bedroom door, trading blows. Then Blue came out of the closet. The Sithari's scales had gone jet black, and it moved faster than Jake had ever seen it move. It launched itself at the big man with a shriek that made Jake's ears ring. Those small, sharp teeth found the man's arm, his neck, any exposed skin. The retractable claws were out now, digging deep. The smuggler screamed and tried to throw Blue off, but the Sithari held on with all 6 legs. It was like watching a small, scaled fury. All the fear and worry from the past days came pouring out in pure protective rage. Jake used the distraction. He grabbed his pistol from where it had fallen and fired. The big man went down. Blue jumped clear, landing beside Jake, its scales still black with fury. The other 2 smugglers appeared in the doorway. They stopped when they saw their fallen companion, their faces going pale. They raised their weapons. Then the window exploded. A woman in tactical gear swung through on a rope, moving so fast she was almost a blur. She hit one smuggler with a precise strike that sent him crashing into the wall. She disarmed the other one and knocked him out with the butt of her weapon. The whole thing took maybe 5 seconds. She turned to Jake, lowering her weapon. "Jake Martinez. I am Helen Cruz, Interspecies Protection Agency. Sorry I am late. Traffic was terrible." Jake stared at her, his pistol still raised, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might explode. Blue pressed against his leg, scales slowly fading from black to a frightened gray. Helen holstered her weapon and pulled out a badge. "It is okay. I am here to help. Lisa Chang sent me. She said you had a Sithari that needed protection. Jake slowly lowered his pistol. Through his bond with Blue, he felt the creature's fear beginning to ease, though it still watched the woman warily. "Yeah," Jake said, his voice rough. "That is us." Helen called in her team on a radio. Within minutes, Jake's apartment was full of agents and tactical gear. They secured the smugglers, called for medical teams, started documenting the scene. Carol had called the police after hearing the gunfire, and Helen had to deal with them too, showing credentials that made the officers back off quickly. Through it all, Blue stayed pressed against Jake's side. The creature's scales had gone from black to gray to a dark, unhappy blue. Through their bond, Jake felt its lingering fear and worry, mixed with exhaustion. The fight had taken a lot out of the small creature. Helen finally got everyone else out of the apartment and sat down across from Jake. She looked tired but professional, with sharp eyes that did not miss anything. Her gaze softened when she looked at Blue. "That is one brave Sithari," she said quietly. "The way it came out to protect you, that is not normal behavior for a juvenile. You two have really bonded. Is that going to be a problem?" Jake asked, his hand protectively on Blue's head. "That depends. What do you want?" Jake looked down at Blue. The creature looked back up at him with those huge, trusting eyes. Through their bond, he felt Blue's fear that Jake might give it away, send it back to whatever facility it had been kept in before. "I want to keep Blue," Jake said firmly. "This is my family now." Helen smiled. It was a real smile, warm and understanding. "Good answer. Because legally you might be able to do exactly that." She pulled out a tablet and started explaining. Sithari bonds were recognized under interspecies law. Once formed, they were considered permanent. Separating bonded pairs caused severe psychological harm. There were procedures, certifications Jake would need to complete, registrations to file. But if he was willing to do the work, Blue could stay with him legally. "I will do whatever it takes," Jake said without hesitation. Blue's scales flashed bright yellow, and through their bond, Jake felt a burst of pure joy and relief. The creature pressed closer to him, purring. "There is one more thing," Helen said. "The smugglers will go to prison, but their organization is bigger than just these three. You both might still be in danger." "Then we will deal with it," Jake said. "Together." Helen looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you will. And for what it is worth, I think that Sithari chose well when it pugglers woo." The next 2 weeks passed like a dream. Jake took leave from the scrapyard, which turned permanent when Helen offered him a job with the Interspecies Protection Agency. The pay was better, the work was meaningful, and most importantly, he could work from home most of the time. That meant he could stay with Blue. The apartment got repaired. Helen's agency covered the costs, calling it compensation for Jake's help in capturing the smugglers. New walls, new furniture, new everything. Carol came by during the repairs and finally met Blue. Her reaction surprised Jake. "Oh my goodness," she said, her eyes going wide. "Is that what you have been hiding?" "Jake, it is adorable." Blue's scales flashed yellow, clearly pleased with the compliment. The creature walked over to Carol and sniffed her hand carefully. Carol, to her credit, did not flinch. She reached out slowly and stroked Blue's head. "Well, are you not a sweet thing?" she said. No wonder Jake was being so protective. After that, Carol became an ally. She would check on them, bring food that was safe for Sithari to eat, and keep an eye out for any suspicious people. She never asked too many questions, seeming to understand that some things were better left unknown. Jake spent his evenings completing the certification course in xenobiology and Sithari care. It was all online, with videos and tests. Blue would sit beside him during the lectures, occasionally chirping at the screen when pictures of other Scytheri appeared. Jake learned more than he ever thought possible about the species. Sithari were incredibly intelligent. They could understand complex ideas, learn to use simple tools, and even pick up basic communication in other languages. They lived long lives, sometimes 50 years or more, and their bonds were truly permanent. Once formed, they lasted until death. The course also taught him about Sithari emotions and behaviors. He learned that the color changes in their scales were not random. Blue was the default color, meaning calm and content. Yellow meant happy or excited. Gray meant worried or uncertain. Black meant frightened or aggressive. Orange meant affectionate. Green meant curious. Each emotion had its shade, and Jake found himself getting better at reading Blue's feelings just by looking. The bond between them grew stronger each day. Jake would wake up knowing Blue's mood before he even opened his eyes. He could sense when the creature was hungry, tired, or bored, and Blue could sense his emotions too. When Jake had nightmares, which still happened sometimes, Blue would press against him and purr until the bad dreams went away. On a Saturday morning, 2 weeks after the attack, Helen came by with news. The formal bonding ceremony is set for this afternoon. Are you ready? Jake looked at Blue, who was watching them with alert interest. What does this ceremony involve? It is a Sithari tradition. When a Scytheri bonds with someone from another species, the Homeworld Collective likes to formally recognize it. It is partly cultural, partly legal. Once the bond is recognized, you become official guardians of each other. The collective will provide support and resources, and in return, you promise to honor and care for Blue. I can do that, Jake said. I have been doing it, Helen smiled. I know. That is why this will be easy. The ceremony was held in Jake's repaired living room. Helen had set up a holographic projector, and through it appeared the image of an elder Sithari. The creature was magnificent, easily 3 times Blue's size. Its scales shifted through every color of the rainbow in complex patterns that Jake somehow knew meant wisdom and authority. I am called Brightscale, the elder said, her voice deep and musical. You are Jake Martinez, the human who saved one of our young. Yes, Jake said. He felt nervous, though he was not sure why. Blue pressed against his leg, offering silent support through their bond. You saved this child when others would have left them to die. You protected them from those who would cause harm. You bonded with them freely and have cared for them with devotion. For this we are grateful. I did not do it for gratitude, Jake said honestly. I did it because Blue needed help, and because leaving them there to die would have been wrong. Brightscale's scales flashed with colors Jake could not quite interpret. That is why you are worthy. Tell me, Jake Martinez, do you understand what it means to be bonded with one of our kind? I understand that Blue will be with me for the rest of its life. That we are connected in ways I am still learning. That I am responsible for Blue's safety and happiness. That this bond can never be broken. And do you accept this bond freely, knowing all that it means? Jake looked down at Blue. The creature was looking up at him with those huge eyes, scales glowing with hope and love. Through their bond, Jake felt Blue's absolute trust and devotion. Yes, he said firmly. I accept it. Blue is my family now. That is not going to change. Brightscale's scales flashed bright gold. Then by the authority of the Homeworld Collective, I recognize this bond as true and permanent. Jake Martinez, you are now recognized as bonded to the Sithari. This carries both honor and responsibility. We will provide you with resources and support. In return, you must treat your companion with respect and love. I will, Jake promised. Blue chirped loudly and rubbed against his leg, scales cycling through every bright, happy color. Through their bond, Jake felt joy so strong it brought tears to his eyes. Blue was not just happy. Blue was overjoyed, relieved, complete. Brightscale began a traditional blessing, her hologram flickering through complex color patterns while making sounds that Jake could feel more than hear. Blue responded with its own display, and Jake understood they were speaking in a language that had no human words. After the ceremony ended and Brightscale's hologram faded, everyone stayed for food. Helen had brought supplies and Carol had made her special cookies. Blue got extra fish, which the creature ate happily while its scales glowed with contentment. Lisa called later that evening to congratulate them. You did good, Martinez. That Sithari is lucky to have you. I think I am the lucky one, Jake said, watching Blue try to catch its own tail in a circle. Blue saved me just as much as I saved them. How so? Jake thought about it. When I came back from the war, I felt empty, like I was just going through the motions. I had no purpose, nothing that mattered. Then I found Blue, and suddenly I had a reason to get up in the morning. I had someone who needed me, someone who cared about me. It made me remember what it felt like to be alive. That is what bonds do, Lisa said softly. They heal us in ways we do not expect. After everyone left, Jake sat on his couch with Blue curled in his lap. The apartment was quiet again, but it was a good quiet now. A peaceful quiet, the quiet of home. You know, Jake said to Blue. A few weeks ago, my biggest worry was showing up to work on time. Now I have a telepathic alien bonded to me for life, a job fighting smugglers, and a neighbor who makes special fish cookies just for you. Blue chirped and looked up at him. Through their bond, Jake felt warmth and happiness and deep, lasting love. Yeah, he said, stroking the creature's scales. I feel the same way. Outside, the desert sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Inside the small apartment, a man and his Sithari companion sat together in comfortable silence. Jake had spent 12 years fighting wars across the galaxy. He had seen terrible things and done harder things. He had come home broken, lost, and alone. But sometimes healing came from unexpected places. Sometimes it came from finding a hurt creature in a scrapyard and choosing to help instead of walking away. Sometimes it came from opening your heart to something small and scared that needed you just as much as you needed it. Jake looked at Blue, whose scales were now the deep, peaceful blue of a calm ocean. Through their bond, he felt contentment and safety and the absolute certainty that they belonged together. The galaxy was huge and full of dangers. Bad people still existed. The smuggling ring that had wanted Blue was broken but not destroyed. There would be challenges ahead, problems to solve, threats to face. But Jake was not worried. He had survived 12 years of war. He had learned to fight, to endure, to protect what mattered. And now he had something worth protecting. He had a purpose again. He had a family. Blue yawned, showing all those small, sharp teeth, then settled deeper into Jake's lap. The creature's purring filled the quiet apartment, a sound that meant home and safety and love. Jake closed his eyes and let himself feel the bond between them, that warm connection that ran deeper than words or thoughts. It was permanent and unbreakable. It would last for the rest of their lives, and Jake would not have it any other way. He had found Blue in a scrapyard, hurt and scared and alone. He had taken the creature home not knowing what it would mean, not knowing how it would change everything. But that was the thing about the best decisions in life. You made them with your heart, not your head. You chose to care when it would have been easier not to. You chose to help when no one would have blamed you for walking away. Jake had made that choice, and Blue had made the same choice. Bonding with a broken-down soldier who needed healing just as much as the creature did, they had saved each other, and now they would face whatever came next together. Bonded not just by alien biology, but by something deeper, by friendship, by trust, by love. The desert night fell cool and dark around the small apartment. Inside, a man and his Sithari companion sat in peaceful silence, their bond humming quietly between them. Two beings from different worlds,